So council, if we can have your attention, please. I'd like to begin the meeting by thanking our media and broadcast partners for broadcasting our meeting and reporting on it. Pass the agenda to Madam Clerk to begin the meeting.
Under Agenda Item 1, Adoption of Minutes, I have a motion by Councillors Kropotich and Butland, resolved that the minutes of regular council meeting of November 20, 2017 and budget meeting of December 4, 2017 be approved.
All in favor? Carried.
And pecuniary interests?
Councillor Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Downtown Safety Strategy 8.1, spouse employed by police services.
Very good. Councillor Kropotich.
Yes, item 6.1, Port of Algoma Agreements Amendments, employee of SR Algoma.
Very good. Councillor Graninetti.
6.1, I'm an employee of SR Algoma, and also 6.6, spouses employed by NRCan.
Thank you. Councillor Shoemaker.
6.8, the Heritage Property Tax Rebate application is a client of the firm that I work at, and 6.16, the agreement on the subdivision, the applicant is a client of the law firm I work at as well.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Bruni.
6.10, EDC, my daughter works there.
Understood. Anybody else? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Under Agenda Item 4, a motion by Councillors Kropotich and Christian, resolved that the agenda for December 11, 2017 City Council meeting as presented be approved.
All in favor? Carried.
Under Agenda Item 5.1, construction employer cost benefit, you'll note that there is a motion that appears on the addendum as well. And Karen Renkema, Senior Manager, Public Affairs, Progressive Contractors Association of Canada, and Andrew Regneris, the Ontario Construction Coordinator with the Christian Labour Association of Canada, are in attendance with respect to that item.
So we have a delegation in attendance. Council, before we invite that delegation up, if you had any questions for the city staff on the reports that are before you, you can ask those questions now, and when we can invite our delegation up, we can hear from our delegation. Mr. Shoemaker, Councilor Shoemaker.
Sorry, you said we're asking questions on 7.11?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I'll have, through you, a number of questions to the Commissioner of Human Resources. So, Mr. Nero, is there any available information on how much ICI or work falls under this tendering restriction that the city's done since it was designated a construction employer in 1987?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, nothing concrete, and certainly would be quite challenging to try to decipher previous projects and break down the various components required to give you an estimate that I would be comfortable in volunteering as fact.
Okay. The report did say, however, that we have between 40 and 50 million of work that would fall within this regime coming up in the next 3 to 4 years?
Through you, Mr. Councilor Shoemaker, that's correct.
Okay, and I see that in 1998 and 2004, we tried to decertify as a construction employer, but were unsuccessful at those times. It appears to me that the Essex Board, since that time, has been successful in decertifying as a construction employer.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Shoemaker, that certainly appears to be the case.
Okay. And are you aware if can you say if the city has experienced any higher tender costs as a result of this process this tendering restriction that's in place?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Shoemaker, I will not be able to state with any certainty that that's the case, but certainly the expectation and the lay of the land would be that that is in fact contemplated, but certainly without knowing any bids from other potential bidders, it would be difficult to actually say for certain.
And am I correct in saying the reason we don't know bids from other potential bidders is because they are prohibited from bidding on our projects that fall within this category?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Shoemaker, that's correct.
And have you or has anybody at the city who has some carriage of this file had the opportunity to review any of the studies that suggest that costs can be higher, anywhere in the range of 1 to 30% on projects where there's closed tendering?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Shoemaker, I have reviewed the most recent data that I received on Friday, and that certainly seems to be what the reports indicate.
Okay.
But that is not something I can speak to from my experience here.
Right. So if we had, and perhaps this is more to the Commissioner of Finance, if we had capital projects in the next 3 years to 4 years of 40 to 50 million, a range of 1% increase to 30% increase on those costs would be somewhere in the range of either on the low end 400,000 if it's 1% higher, on the high end 15 million if it's 30% higher.
Well, I think your answer is in your question, Councilor Shoemaker. I mean,
I'm
you're
just
just
looking
you're
at-
asking the Commissioner of Human Resources to do some math, though, right?
Would that be accurate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, the mayor has answered quite logically that yes, it's a mathematical question. I can't say with any certainty what it would be in the future.
Okay. And we have in your report, Commissioner of Human Resources, that the cost of the application to decertify at the OLRB would be expected to be between 150 and 175,000.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Shoemaker, that in addition to foregoing certain other revenues as stated in
That's
my
my
report.
next question. You're getting ahead of me. So the way we currently operate, some of the aspects of what we do would have to change before we could attempt to decertify?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Shoemaker, yes, for at least a period of 3 years.
Okay. And the costs of foregoing the revenue from the way we currently operate would be between 150,000 and 200,000 per year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Shoemaker, that's correct.
Okay. And I understand that MPP Michael Harris from Kitchener has introduced an amendment to the legislation to allow cities to be out of this construction employer designation. Is that your understanding as well?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Shoemaker, if that was his previous attempt that fell on the floor, for lack of a better term, yes, that was my understanding, and it did not succeed.
Did not succeed. Okay, that was my next question. So, does the restriction on closed, does the restriction that we have on being designated a construction employer, does it shut out only non-unionized businesses, or does it also shut out any unionized businesses who aren't unionized with these specific unions?
My understanding that if the scope of the work falls within the two unions that we are bound by and to, those are the only bids that we could appropriately accept.
So it would, in addition to shutting out non-unionized workplaces, would shut out any unionized workforce that didn't fall within those two unions?
I would, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Shoemaker, I would suspect so.
Okay. I do have some comments, but
Yeah, we'll just take any additional questions for staff, and then we'll accept the delegation up. We'll hear from the delegation, and then we can deal with your motion, Councilor Shoemaker.
thank you.
Any other councilors have questions for staff? Seeing none, I'd like to welcome, we have a delegation, two delegations here tonight. We had a change in one of the parties' names, so if you just come up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Hi, we're going to do this jointly together. My name is Karen Rinkema, and this is Andrew Regneris from CLAC.
Very good.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome to council. Now, did you provide a presentation that's going to be on our screens here, or?
No, I'm just going to speak to the issue and then happy to answer any questions following. Thank you. Your Worship, members of council and staff, I'm Karen Rinkema. I'm the Senior Manager of Public Affairs at the Progressive Contractors Association of Canada. I'll be joined, or I am joined, by Andrew Regneris, who is the Provincial Director of CLAC, our labour partner. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about restricted tendering. It's an issue that we're passionate about because it impacts local contractors, workers, and every single taxpayer in Sault Ste. Marie. PCA is a national association of contractors. We're committed to a progressive labor model. We value respect and collaboration and promote fair and open construction tendering in all provinces and all municipalities across Ontario. Our employer members across the country are unionized, primarily by CLAC and also by other alternative unions. While our members work in all sectors of the construction industry, they do not have an opportunity to work in all cities or public entities, such as Sault Ste. Marie. As you know, restricted tendering prevents up to 70% of local contractors and workers from building projects in their own communities. That just isn't fair. Before tendering was restricted in the region of Waterloo, for example, 91 companies were eligible to bid on projects in the region of Waterloo. That pool in the region of Waterloo has now shrunk to just 15. For Sault, it means that this city has also lost its ability to attract a higher number of bidders who provide different labor pools and cost structures that are competitive. The unfairness doesn't stop there. When competition on local projects is restricted, costs go up at taxpayers' expense. There's a growing and compelling body of research by the Cardis think tank that shows that taxpayers in this city are paying between 20 to 30% more than they should be for everything from courthouse improvements to water treatment facilities. Apply that to the estimated $40 to $50 million worth of anticipated infrastructure projects over the next 3 years. It means at the low end, Sault taxpayers will pay approximately $8 million, too much for municipal construction projects. It also means a handful of companies and their affiliated unions are benefiting at the expense of everyone else in the city to the tune of about $8 million. That's just plain wrong. Today is your opportunity to take an important step forward in making things right for taxpayers, local workers, and local contractors in this city. I'd like to extend a special thanks to our members of city staff, to the members of city staff for their work on the cost-benefit report. We appreciate your efforts and recognize that this is no easy task. We fully appreciate that the decertification process is a cumbersome one. While staff has done a good job with its analysis, we suggest it could go further. First, we ask that members of staff get a good handle on what they believe the additional costing is on past and future projects. They may find that it's approximately 20% or that it may exceed 30%. They may also determine, as research in other municipalities has shown, that fewer bids are received when tendering is restricted. In addition, we ask that the legal costs and delays associated with resolving jurisdictional disputes between the Carpenters Union and the Laborers International Union also be tallied. We're confident that staff can provide council with a summary of these costs. In order to determine whether it's worth challenging Sault Ste. Marie's construction employer status, it's critical for council to have as complete a picture as possible of the true costs of construction labor monopolies in Sault Ste. Marie. I'd like to now turn it over to Andrew Rigneris.
Thanks, Karen. And again, Mr. Mayor and councillors, thank you for allowing us to speak to this issue. This is your chance to take a stand, to be leaders in helping to persuade the Ontario government to fix its broken labor laws once and for all. Construction labor monopolies impact more than $1 billion worth of public municipal infrastructure in Ontario each year. They affect 1 in 3 Ontarians and 100% of the people in Sault Ste. Marie, Toronto, Hamilton, and the region of Waterloo. CLAC was begun in 1952, 65 years ago, and founded on a unique, principled approach to worker advocacy. Today, we're one of the largest independent labor unions in Canada with more than 60,000 members across the country. Our union exists to provide workers with member-focused alternative option to the mainstream building trade unions. We believe that giving workers real choice will lead to a robust and long-lasting labor movement. In contrast, closed tendering, as experienced in Sault Ste. Marie, eliminates worker choice and restricts access to a significant amount of publicly funded construction work to those workers who work for a company certified by the Carpenters Union or the Laborers Union. For more than 3 decades, the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America and the Laborers International Union of North America have enjoyed a monopoly on municipal construction projects in the Sault. This is due to a loophole in Ontario's Labour Relations Act, which causes Sault Ste. Marie to be treated as a construction employer, binding this city to collective agreements that are not intended for construction contractors nor suited for municipal governments. An unintended consequence of the law is local, qualified contractors and their workers may not build city work. Restricted tendering is not in the public's interest. It's not in this community's best interest. It's unfair to workers and it's unfair to taxpayers. When there's less competition, municipal projects cost more and taxpayers don't get good value for their hard-earned tax dollars. We're urging you to put the interests of this community first by supporting 3 recommendations that we have. First of all, to build the strongest case possible, we request that Council ask staff to get a better sense of the actual costs of restricted tendering by tallying the additional costs on past and future projects. We also ask that the legal costs and construction delays associated with settling union jurisdictional disputes be included. This will allow you to provide the province with the actual cost of restricted tendering in your community. Secondly, we urge Council to pass a resolution calling on the province to amend Section 126 of Ontario's Labour Relations Act to exclude municipal governments from the construction employer provision of the Act so that the Sault can fairly and openly tender municipal construction projects to all qualified contractors and workers. Finally, we ask that you recommend to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario that it form a special committee that includes other affected municipalities. The goal is for this committee to advocate for fair and open tendering and make it a priority issue for AMO heading into the June provincial election. We thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about this important issues, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you to our delegations. Do we have any questions of either of our delegates? Councillor Butland?
Yes. There's only a few municipalities in this situation, correct?
That's true.
And are you making presentations to Toronto and Kitchener as well?
Yes, we have.
So that we're not, Hamilton, we're not jumping into this all by ourselves because, well, I'm into comments now. AMO will not likely respond unless there would be more than one municipality involved. That wasn't a question, no, but if you have an answer to a non-question, go ahead.
I do.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
please. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. We have been working with AMO, the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, a number of different associations like that. AMO actually has supported this. They have written a number of letters to the provincial government asking for Section 126 to be amended. However, I would suggest it's not a high priority item for them because the affected municipalities may not have been as vocal on the issue as they could have been. So our suggestion regarding AMO is that the municipalities that are affected, like the Region Waterloo, like Hamilton, City of Toronto, become a bit more vocal to ensure this is a high priority item for AMO. So that, just to the point.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Nero.
Yep,
please.
go ahead.
This is a financial issue, it would appear, no matter what decision we had in Labour Council. Have we had any input from the Sault and District Labour Council on this issue?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bodden. No, that particular body has not been contacted. If you're talking about our District Labour Council,
yes,
they have not approached me, nor have I approached them, Councillor Butland.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, folks. So, Council, we have the staff report before us. If we could just have a motion to accept it, it's just for information, so we have that. Resolved that the report of the Director of Human Resource dated 2017-11-06 concerning construction employer cost benefit be received as information. All in favor? That's carried. So we have Councillor Shoemaker's motion that relates to this. It seems to me we should just deal with that at this time and get that motion addressed and dealt with. So we'll have the clerk read that motion, please.
I have a motion by Councillors Shoemaker and Grandinetti, whereas the Ontario Labour Relations Board decision to designate the City of Sault Ste. Marie as a construction employer in 1987 has meant that a monopoly on city construction work is held by two specific unions to the exclusion of all other unionized and non-unionized businesses. And whereas the Essex School Board was faced with the same type of monopoly for construction projects under their directions, and whereas the Essex School Board successfully changed their practices and challenged their designation as a construction employer before the Ontario Labour Relations Board, and whereas the fastest and most cost-effective solution to the construction employer designation would be a change in legislation, as has been proposed by Kitchener MPP Michael Harris, and whereas governments from all three parties have been in power since Sault Ste. Marie was designated a construction employer, and none of them have made the requisite legislative change, and whereas it is expected to cost between $600,000 and $800,000 to change our construction practices and challenge our construction employer designation, and whereas the savings from not being designated a construction employer are expected to be between $400,000 and $15 million. And now therefore be it resolved that staff prepare for and budget for the necessary changes to the city's practices for implementation in the 2019 budget year. And be it further resolved that once implemented, staff provide a yearly status report to council on the progress being made and a final report seeking direction when the city is in a position to commence a challenge of their construction employer designation in front of the Ontario Labour Relations Board.
Okay, so Councillor Christian has a question. Councillor Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, it's obviously an important topic that we need to grapple with. My question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the mover and seconder, just want to be clear on the now therefore be it resolved. So if I read this correctly, what you're asking us to do, that starting in the 2019 budget year, we are not going to charge outside users, et cetera, for those services, to recognize that we no longer want to be part of that agreement with the labor unions. Is that correct? Through you to Mr. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would be looking to forego the revenue that comes to us that is the determining factor in deeming us a construction employer.
Okay. Just a follow-up then. Are you suggesting then that's when the clock begins to tick, or do we try to implement somehow in the 2018 budget? I just want to be clear on what the intent is.
Yeah,
This does not change the 2018 budget.
Doesn't change the budget.
No. So Councillor Shoemaker's motion specifically would set the stage to begin this process 2019 going forward. So this will not take effect this year.
Right. So the clock does not begin on the process until at least one more year.
Correct.
Not on the process as far as that process would be. There's two processes in my mind.
Yeah.
The one process that Councillor Shoemaker's motion addresses the legal process.
Right.
So we wouldn't be successful in bringing an application until the clock started ticking, and it ticked for a period of time. There's a second process, which I think Councillor Shoemaker and I briefly discussed earlier today, but I think is worth discussing here, and I think it's consistent with what the delegations have raised tonight, which is a political process, and that we have a campaign coming up. Part of what I hear from the delegations is they're looking for a motion from council to support a change in the legislation, but also to push AMO to lobby on this more aggressively.
Yes.
There's nothing stopping that process from commencing or being ongoing in the interim.
No, and I agree with you. I mean, we can't be positioning ourselves as a competitive environment for business investment, et cetera, if we have these types of weights on our heels. So I certainly support the intent, and I support the concept wholeheartedly.
We have Councillor Myers and then Councillor Nero.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Quite frankly, I find this confusing. I'm not sure that I'm clear on understanding at all what's being asked for here. Whereas it is expected to cost between $600,000 and $800,000 to change our construction practices. So the cost, obviously, that's a cost, I get that. And therefore be it resolved that staff prepare for and budget for necessary changes. Are we talking about a $600,000 to $800,000 amount? I don't know. I'm very confused about this, Mr. Mayor.
So, well.
What's the financial implication?
I'll give it to Councillor Shoemaker in a second. What Councillor Shoemaker was trying to do here is that we have to forego specific revenue for a number of years before we'll be successful in an application. This number represents that revenue being lost. So this revenue is currently in the 2018 budget. So Councillor Shoemaker's point is a council doesn't really have the runway to start this unless somebody puts the work into place for them. And if the decision isn't made, because it's a long process, if the decision isn't made to start the process, then, as Councillor Christian points out, you would have to, you can't just bring an application, right? So Councillor Shoemaker's point is he wants staff to prepare to start foregoing this revenue as of 2019, so that staff will be in a position, a council will be in a position to challenge the designation. But to be clear, Councillor Shoemaker, that council will have to choose to challenge the designation.
Correct. But there's just one specific point I think requires clarification there. The revenue that we get is between 150 and 200,000 per year. We'd be foregoing it for 3 years. So it would be, it's a total of somewhere between 600 and 800,000, but only in increments of 150 to 200,000 per year for the next 3 years.
Commencing in 19.
Yeah, there would be a $150,000 to $200,000 effect in the 19 budget, the 20 budget, the 21 budget.
Okay.
So Councillor Shoemaker wants to start this process, but it needs to be noted that it would require the consent and cooperation of the next mayor and council. The next mayor and council did not want to forego that revenue or did not want to make the investment.
That's where I was going to go next with my question. This is not binding arbitration.
We can't bind the next mayor and council, but we can direct this staff to do current work that would put the next mayor and council in a position if they chose to fall through on that
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's where I was going next on it. Okay, thank you for the clarification on the figure.
We have, Councillor Myers, we have Mr. Nero looking to add something.
Okay, I have another question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To council as a whole and Councillor Myers, to be clear, it's 3 years of foregoing that revenue in addition to the time that it takes to complete the process at the board, which could be up to another 2 years.
Sure, okay,
so it's a 5-year absence of that revenue stream.
Yeah. Okay, and the approximate revenue ranges anywhere from 150 to 200 now, so the upside would be 600, not 800.
Could be a million.
3 twos or 6, aren't they?
Could be a million.
No, he said 3 years of foregoing it at 200,000 upside a year. So you're looking at 600,000 at the max, not 800. Anyway, whatever. My other, okay, am I continuing on?
You are.
On this point? Right.
Go ahead.
Okay. Also, I just want to note, it was mentioned about AMO, lobbying through AMO. Toronto is not a member of AMO. They negotiate directly with the province. AMO does not do any lobbying or negotiating with the province on behalf of the City of Toronto. They are not a member. They opted out many, many years ago from AMO, and Mr. Turco, you can confirm that as our AMO board member. Is that true?
Thank you, Councillor Myers. We've had this discussion at AMO, but not as our guest speakers, not to the effect that some people wanted us to talk, because we only had really 2 members besides Sault Ste. Marie.
That's right.
Hamilton and well, I know the board member from Waterloo was very adamant about the situation. She's no longer on the board, and we don't have anybody from Hamilton on the board as well. So it hasn't been really discussed in the last couple of years.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that, because obviously the City of Toronto, it's a huge issue, but they aren't going to, there'll be no lobbying on their behalf through AMO. So my other question is, Mr. Mayor, I don't know who to direct this to, but I think we absolutely have to lobby through our MPP. So who would take the lead on doing that? Is that something staff would do, or is that something that Councillor Shoemaker on the political side would do, or?
So I think that maybe it'd be appropriate to have a resolution in January that speaks to the issue as specifically addressed by the legislation.
Okay.
And then I'd be happy to work with Councillor Shoemaker on that.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, so Councillor Nero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Nero. Mr. Nero, the resolution refers to the Essex School Board a couple of times. Do you see any difference between a challenge from the Essex School Board and a challenge from the City of Sault Ste. Marie?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Nero, I don't see them as apples to apples comparisons. in doing the research and speaking with the legal representatives that were successful at Essex, they agree that we as a municipality are quite unique, and it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. And they've reinforced my concerns about failing even if we do follow the same protocols and practices. And keep in mind, this is the legal representative that was successful with the Essex County School Board. So I don't think that's a proper comparison, with all due respect, but...
Why? Just fill us in on that. And where's the concern that if we follow the same process, we wouldn't be successful?
So for the most part, they don't operate in the multifaceted ways that we do as far as the revenue streams that they would have received. They were doing maintenance work on behalf of a third party, which is what triggered their eventual ability to sever ties, change their practice, and get decertified. But it's the corporate structure and the revenue streams that the Essex County School Board did not possess in comparison to a municipality. And that's what the crux of this challenge is. I want to be clear. I support an open and tendering process for anyone. My interest lies with everyone else's in the benefits for the taxpayer. But there are certain obvious challenges that I have to, I think, in my due diligence and my responsibilities to you folks, is that I do have some concerns about the prospects of this challenge.
Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Nero, I value your judgment, but is there anything through your department that you could bring to council to, I don't know what word I want, to confirm that or to add some credence to it before we go ahead and, spend this kind of money, not knowing for sure that we have a valid challenge at the end of the day?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Nero, I think the fact that I've discussed with two different legal representatives, legal firms that have had experience in this process, twice with us, once with the Essex County School Board, they've confirmed what my predecessor has on file as attempts and concerns. I share those same concerns. Certainly, we could have a critique of my report from those labor lawyers, if that would be of interest to council. But I can tell you, I have reached out to those very lawyers that have confirmed my suspicions. I don't believe there's anything more that we can provide to council. We know the costs are there. We know the costs are not fair. We know the costs are not in line with any other municipality that is not bound. That's a certainty. To what level remains a mystery, but I think really it's a moot point. Unfortunately, for the taxpayers of St. Marie, they are paying a premium for certain projects.
Well, Councillor Nero, let me ask a question this way, because I think any legal process has instability in it, and it's hard to determine what the outcome will be. And this maybe can go to the city solicitor. Would there be any, I think some of what council might be looking for is a better understanding maybe of the legal process and where there is risk in the legal process and where our position, which isn't something we would be talking about at an open meeting, but where our position compares and how it compares to the other matter that was successful. So would the city solicitors see it as something that would be appropriate or beneficial to do if we had retained or brought in the expertise that, the legal expertise that Mr. Nero is speaking about, to give council somewhat of an educational on that? Is that what council is looking for?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the basis for my question is exactly the comment that you made, is that, our staff is telling us, or is giving us an opinion, and I value that opinion, but am I prepared to risk this kind of money not knowing how good of a position that we have? And I agree with you that that's not a discussion we want to have in open, but I think there's some value to knowing the answer to that question coming from the legal profession on our chances.
Can I have staff's feedback, senior staff's feedback on whether they see that that's something that's feasible to do and the time frame they see that occurring within?
Mr. Mayor, if you're asking a labor law firm to give a weight as to our likelihood of success, I think that could be provided rather readily. I don't think that would take too long. That said, you're asking a law firm, so they'll want the file, I would think, but they will give you the factors that go into the deliberations, yes?
Again, I don't want to get into this. I have no idea what we're talking about in terms of dollar value for this opinion. But if we're going to pass a resolution that to accept a cost of 600 to 800,000 by the time and more, so I don't know what that means.
Well, there are, again, there's two processes here. There's a legal process and a political process. On the legal process, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of magic in today, because it's not as if anything's going to happen over the Christmas holidays. Is this something, seniors, does staff believe we could have a more substantive and thorough opinion back before council early in the new year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, I think we can get certainly a written piece. If they're talking about a presentation, Mr. Mayor, that would probably take some more time and added cost, but I think I can get a written confirmation of our status and prospects early in the new year, certainly.
Councillor Shoemaker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just mentioned this to Councillor Nero. I don't think that my motion and what we're discussing through Councillor Nero are mutually exclusive. I think because we're giving a year lead time to start this process, there is nothing that would restrict us from passing this, getting the information from the labor lawyer, even if it takes 2 months to get. I don't want to be behind the 8 ball if we get the information that says, yes, you should move forward with this. So I think it would be, I still think we can pass this if it's council's will to pass this, and look for a labor opinion thereafter to come back to us. And if that changes our opinion on our prospects moving forward, that, you know, it can come back to council at that point.
And wouldn't you think that would be a reconsideration at that point, though, Councillor Shoemaker?
If there's anything on there from a labor lawyer that changes my opinion, I'll move the reconsideration.
What if it doesn't change your opinion, but changes other councillors' opinions?
Yes, I imagine there'll be others who vote in favor of this. I'm sure some of them will.
Okay, well, listen, there's no one that's moved to defer it, so it's still on before us. So Councillor Nero could vote based on the level of comfort he has with the information that's before him. Councillor Nero?
I really don't want to defer it. I can support this as long as you need a resolution to get that further report from HR.
I don't think we need a resolution to do that. I think it's pretty clear from council that we want staff to do some more work on this, and that's a conversation I can have with senior staff. I don't think we need a resolution for that.
And I'm okay with supporting this resolution.
Okay, I have Councillor Hollingsworth next. Go ahead.
So procedurally, this is not binding, though, beyond into 19. We will revisit this as a budget item, I guess.
Absolutely.
When you mentioned the reconsideration, I'm now starting to get a little bit uneasy.
Before then, but this, like my feeling is we can't bind the next council, and the next council might not decide to spend this money, even if it's all of us again, right? So we are directing staff to do work over the course of the next year. That, from my perspective, is what this motion is doing.
Okay, so where would be the concern of reconsideration? That's I guess, because my radar went up on that when you said...
I don't know what the report is going to say, but if we get I'm just thinking through this as the chair of the group.
Yes, I appreciate that.
If we get a report and a few of you don't like it and you want to revisit this and not direct staff to do the work...
But we're going to get that opportunity anyway, aren't we?
Well,
not to do the work, but to financially proceed.
At the very end of the road.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for that clarification.
Okay, so Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Just clarification, I think, Mayor, you probably can clarify this point. So we discussed that hypothetically in 2019, we may stop paying for or receiving the revenue, in other words, receiving the revenue from the union side or whatever. So I should clarify. So here's my question to you, is that if 2019, if council does decide to move forward and stop accepting the revenue, at that time, can we start receiving non-union or people that don't belong to this group
No.
to do work? We have to wait till legislation is actually passed or whatever before we can receive?
We cannot change our current process until either the legislation changes or we go through decertification process. So the legislation changes would be the nearer term if that was successful. The decertification process, as we've heard tonight, we wouldn't be able to start for a few years, but once we started it, it could take another year or two. So this could well be something that doesn't take effect until after the sitting of the next council.
Right. So hypothetically, after the sitting of the next council, down the road, who knows how exactly how many years, can our tenders then be expanded out to?
If the legislation is changed or we decertify, then we wouldn't be bound by that, and we would be able to have an unrestricted tendering process. Right now, we have a restricted tendering process.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the motion? Councillor Fata.
I'm just trying to recall, maybe somebody can help us here on, the PUC had, when we built the PUC, we had some issues on this matter, and it went through an appeal process, and was there some sort of resolution to that situation there?
We'll ask Mr. Neer to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Councillor Fata. Yes, there was a challenge that when the PUC building was erected, there was some claim that it should have been bound to laborers and carpenters because of our relationship with PUC. In the end, after several days of hearings, we were successful in defending the position that we were not a hands-on shareholder and that there was a set degree of separation, which the Ontario Labour Relations Board Chair accepted, and we were successful in not having to pay the difference in what would have been the cost of using a bound contractor.
Okay. And my other question is there anywhere through this whole process that we can combine forces, especially Toronto and Waterloo and Hamilton? Is there any way that this effort that we're going to be going through could be dealt with in a combined...
Politically, that would be, we could certainly approach their councils and their members of provincial parliament through our member of provincial parliament if he is agreeable. But as from a municipal perspective, we'll have Mr. Nero speak to it.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did canvass my colleagues in those jurisdictions for a variety of reasons. Some had letters of understanding with the laborers and carpenters that they didn't want to jeopardize, but for a variety of reasons, they didn't see fit to join the cause at the staff level for a collective decertification application.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions on Councillor Shoemaker's motion? Okay, we can call a vote on the motion.
I'd like to...
you want to speak to it, Councillor Shoemaker? Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as we heard tonight, of 440 municipalities in Ontario, we are one of only 4 of them that are restricted by this practice. The others, Kitchener, Waterloo, Hamilton, and Toronto, and ourselves. For 30 years, we've been faced with an unknown increase in our tenders because of the fact that we are disallowed from accepting tenders from everybody who could submit tenders in Sault Ste. Marie. There are at least 4 or 5 other companies capable of doing the type of work that we need done. For example, the building of the Heritage Discovery Museum was caught by this restrictive tendering. The upgrade of the East End sewage plant was caught by this restrictive tendering. We've got the upgrade of the West End sewage plant coming that will be caught by this restrictive tendering. There are a number of companies in town who are not certified with these 2 specific unions, but are unionized workforces who cannot bid on our projects because of this restriction. These are local companies paying local taxes and being shut out of local work. It is unfair to them, who are contributing to our municipality, to not be able to participate in our municipal economy. A 2% cost reduction. We heard tonight from the delegations that the price increase in some of these restrictive tenders are expected to be between 20 and 30% higher because of the restriction. A 2% increase in our upcoming construction work would far outweigh the cost of decertifying. So if it's 20 or 30%, think of the savings. I agree that we should pursue both the legislative change and the change in our practices simultaneously. Everyone agrees that the legislative change is the best way to fix this problem. Unfortunately, we've had all three parties in power in the last 30 years, and none of them have fixed this problem. MPP Michael Harris from Kitchener has been the one leading the charge, and it is my hope, and I think it is probably the hope of many in this chamber, as well as in Kitchener and Waterloo, Hamilton and Toronto, that his change to the Ontario Labour Relations Act ultimately does pass if he becomes part of government. I would like to clarify, because I've heard on a number of occasions that this is an anti-union position to want the city to decertify as a construction labour. It is not. This restriction shuts out unionized shops as much as it shuts out non-unionized shops. There are folks who are unionized with CLAC, you heard them tonight. There are folks who are unionized with USW. They are shut out from bidding on our construction projects because they are not part of the construction to specific unions that the city must deal with. So while it may seem like a big amount to go through a decertification process, it is the only framework we have to follow the Essex School Board ruling that has been successful. You've heard that on a number of occasions we have been unsuccessful in 1998 and in 2004. The Essex School Board decision provides us the only roadmap that is out there to decertify. So yes, we will have to forego revenue for the next 3 years, and then there is the cost of decertification. But once decertified, if we are successful, we would be looking at substantial savings in our upcoming work that the municipality has to undertake. So I'm hopeful that this council will unanimously support this resolution, and I would ask for a recorded vote.
Okay. Councillor Kompotich.
I'm just going to mention that I'm not going to participate. I'm going to participate, and I am going to vote. But any decertification of any union whatsoever, I'll vote against.
Okay. Any other comments, Councillor? I'm not going to reiterate much of what's been said tonight. From my perspective, this is an issue that is not union, non-union. It's an issue that largely relates to our tendering practices and restrictive versus non-restrictive tendering practices. I think one of the more salient points made tonight is that all tenders should be open, or we aspire for them to be open to all employers, laborers, and unions, as opposed to a singular. So that's the sense in this proposal to me. A lot of work's been done on it, and I thank Councillor Shoemaker for that. Madam Clerk, a recorded vote was requested.
Councillor Turco?
For.
Councillor Fata?
For.
Councillor Christian?
For.
Councillor Kompotich?
Against.
Councillor Kupanen?
For.
Councillor Hollingsworth?
For.
Councillor Grandinetti? For. Councillor Shoemaker? For. Councillor Nero?
For.
Councillor Bruni?
For.
Councillor Myers?
For.
Councillor Butland?
For.
Mayor Provenzano?
For.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Council. We're going to, Council, move on to 6.10. We have a nice delegation and crew here tonight from Antoica, so we won't make them wait any longer. We're going to pull 6.10 from the consent agenda. Mr. Vare is here to speak to 6.10. If anybody has any questions of Mr. Vare, we'll take them. If no one has questions of Mr. Vare, we'll read the resolution and vote on the report. Anybody? No questions for Mr. Dedes? Go ahead, Councillor Butland.
Yep, just one to Mr. Dedes. We rehearsed this, so we should be okay.
Oh, did you?
Should we proceed, and I'm optimistic that we will, because your past record, and it's great to see your entourage here and the good work that you've done, and I hope the work that you will continue to do. But you and I have spoken in the past, and Jeff at Bellevue Park is very interested in a butterfly display. And in his eagerness, he wanted to proceed rather quickly, and your expertise said it is a very good thing, but we have to proceed in an appropriate manner, and there are approvals that you have to seek. Are you prepared to help us get through that process? Because our greenhouses now are a great tourist attraction, and a butterfly collection would really be an additional attraction for people coming to the community. So will you help us with that, please?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Councillors. In short, Mr. Butlin, absolutely. There are some CFIA, Canadian Food Inspection Agency regulations that we do have to adhere to, and we have to look at the infrastructure of the greenhouse itself. Basically, it has to be double-doored. I think it is already. In the event that we set up a tropical butterfly garden, then we need to have that manned during the times that we'll have that open to the public. It's a CFA regulation to assure that none of the butterflies escape and that everybody's following the rules. We can, however, without any CFIA regulatory principles, use indigenous butterflies, and there's some incredible butterflies and moths in the area, so we can do that at any time in preparation for the exotic butterflies later on down the road.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. It's more comments, and I just want to say, Dr. Dedes, thank you on behalf of the city for the hard work that you and your entire team has put into this incredible, wonderful project, but it's not a project. You have educated more students in this city than I can even guess. And you and your team have been standing behind this for not 1 year or 2 years, but correct me if I'm wrong, for at least 4 years or more. And you kept your energy, and you kept basically promoting how wonderful this is and the benefits to our city. You deserve a lot of credit. And I remember the first time I met you when we were trying to get that plant years ago, and where we were worried that the winter was going to destroy the plant to feed the insects when we first came up with this. Congratulations. Thank you for leading this. Thank you for charging through with this. There's going to be so many beautiful opportunities that are going to come about because of your work. And I see that, he is here as well. Keith, you're here. And many all of you. So thank you, because this is what Sault Ste. Marie is about. You represent many people in the city that have a passion for projects, and you're representing something really great for the city. Congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor Collins.
On that positive note, we can call for the vote. Madam Clerk, if you could read the resolution, please.
Motion by Councillors Kropotich and Butlin, resolved that the report of the Deputy CAO Community Development and Enterprise Services be received and the request for funding in the amount of $78,000 from the Economic Development Fund be approved.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. So, Council, that brings us to the consent agenda. Let's see if we can get it all done while Councillor Shoemaker's out of the room. Councillor Myers?
6.2 Code of Conduct, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if we need to pull that out of consent because there's a couple of changes. And the clerk is nodding.
Let's pull that from consent. So 6.2 is pulled. Anything else, Council? Councillor Butland?
Sue Summit.
Councillor Butland?
6.1, Port of Algoma agreements.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, the CEO is going to take any questions.
Oh, okay. The fact that we're going to approve or extend our agreements, I guess, to deal with NOHFC and FedNor, I would like very much to see the Port of Algoma, Anshu, I believe is his name, if he would come here and give us an update as to what kind of year they've had and what they're looking forward to in the coming year, other than just the status quo that I'm certainly totally unsure of what is going on out there, and a free trade zone. I asked him about would that be a benefit to us? And talked to EDC, and Dan Hollingsworth said a few years ago we put together a discussion paper, but then things came around about the MOU and SMIC and EDC, et cetera, so it was dropped. So I'd like very much for him to come, give us a presentation as to where they are and where they hope to be and what the financial components of this would appear to be a very important aspect of our economic prosperity.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Butland. Just to be clear, in terms of the report itself, the extension is just for dates. So it's the extension. The extension is for the dates on the agreements. There's nothing else that's being looked for to be changed. It relates to the $5.3 million undertaking to look at the port, of which $3.2 million has already been expended on phase 1. The pause or that has been implemented relates to the uncertainty of the port relative to the Companies Creditors Arrangement Act or CCAA proceedings. And so in waiting for those decisions to come through from the CCAA, there's been a pause, and Port of Algoma is part of those proceedings, and their legal representatives are part of that proceedings. So while we might ask that they give presentations, there is a concern that that has some implications given their role within the CCAA proceedings. So what we've been doing, at least from the city's perspective, is to continue to wait for the CCAA, and that's why it's only a date change that's been identified here to allow for that once the CCAA is complete and we know what the position of the port is, then we could proceed forward or not, depending on what that outcome is. And certainly the port would come here to make an update at that time for council.
Go ahead, Councillor Butland.
Totally appropriate response. Thank you very much. It's a bit premature. Let's hope things come together in March or April and all kinds of good news can come forward. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hollingsworth on the same issue? Go ahead.
Thank you. You answered most of my questions, Mr. Horseman, with regards to where does this fit in with the CWAA. So I have two quick questions. Just to reconfirm, the owner of the port continues to be?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, that is part of the consideration that would occur within the CCAA process.
Okay. And my second question is, I've always been asking, when can we have an update on the CCAA as council? It's a very important topic for us, and it's a very important topic for our community. Granted, I respect that there's certain bits and pieces that we can't technically talk about, but do we see any type of update from you, Mayor, or others in the new year? I know it's difficult to say that we hope it's wrapping up in March, April, who knows, but just having a brief update would be very helpful, I think, to our community.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, from the city's perspective, as was provided to council a few months back, we were successful in getting an agreement in principle on our taxes, and that's the main component that we've been working through in terms of the municipality. The other orders of government and other representatives to the CCAA process, it is a process itself. It's a legal process. So outside of our particular perspective, which has been provided to council, it would not be appropriate for us to comment on what the other parties to the CCAA process are doing. But we can confirm that an agreement in principle has been done for the taxes, and we're still expecting and hopeful for a positive outcome from that process.
I appreciate your interest, Councillor Hollingsworth, and why you want an update. And I would certainly love to be in a position to update all of council and the city at large. The city's got one role to play in this, and there are a lot of other parties that are involved in it, and they're active in trying to find their own resolutions. So there's only so much the city we can only speak for ourselves, and we as much as we're doing to try and encourage the process and the conclusion of the process, some of that is outside of our control. But I think your question's very legitimate, your concern and desire to get information is legitimate. I think we can look at from we'll talk to the city solicitor and we'll get some advice. Maybe we can give an update in the new year as best as we can, even if it is limited. But by the nature of the process, we'll have to determine what we can and we can't share for both legal and non-legal reasons. But we can look at that over the next few weeks and get back to you in January.
May I make a comment at this time?
Sure.
Okay. I know that the topic is mostly about the port, but what you just said, Mayor, is personally will be beneficial to our community, because I feel strongly that the message we need to send to our community is that this CCWA is very important to us as a council. It is a priority, and we are working behind the scenes on making sure that the outcome is going to be the best for us. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that that is true. It's incredibly important. It's taken a lot of time and attention. There's been a lot of work on it. It's not something that, by its nature, is something that you're able to share a lot of the process, because there are so many other parties in the process and so many moving parts of the process. And the completion of the process requires the participation of a number of different groups. And from my perspective, I know a lot of people are working hard at it, and the city has done a lot to assist and support. But we'll look at what we can bring to you in the new year, and hopefully we can bring a lot of good news and a lot of good information. Okay, so anybody else on that one? That's 6.2. Councillor Butland, do you have anything else?
6.11 to Mr. Girardi, the biosolids management. My usual question on this, can we consider increasing our compost facility as part of this study?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butland. I'm going to refer that question to Don Elliott.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butland, this is primarily for processing the biosolids from the wastewater treatment plants, as I'm sure you know. The prospect of putting other materials into that, I suppose it's possible under a composting facility, but I don't believe it would be possible under a lime stabilization facility. This project is either going to be one of those two options, okay, yeah, and that hasn't been decided yet. That'll be procured as part of the assignment for the consultant. So may I say, if it goes composting, I suppose it's a possibility.
It's good. Thank you. I hope they make the right choice.
Okay. On 6.1, Councillor Christian.
Mayor, through you to Mr. Elliott, and actually he's answered two of my questions, but one other one, I'm looking at the report and I see that we've retained ACOM for 1.2 million, and I get the sense that it's based on the overall project costs, their fees. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, the fee estimate in this situation is essentially an estimate for the consultant of what their fees are going to cost. These contracts are time-based to an upset limit, and if they exceed that limit, they need to seek approval from us ahead of time. These contracts are very complicated. There's different things that can happen that can drive fees up. Some things can drive fees down. And it plays out as it normally would under any engineering assignment.
Okay, so I think you've answered my question. This isn't a solid fee. This could change.
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, that's correct. It's a time-based contract to an upset limit, and anything above that needs to be negotiated with the city under your procurement process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on that topic, Councillor Shoemaker, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The fee of $1,234,567, excluding HST, it seems the first thing that jumped out at me when I saw that fee is that it is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Have we double-checked that that is in fact the number?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, yes, that jumped off the page at us as well. I talked to the consultant about it. as it happened, that is the sum that came out in the spreadsheet, and I wouldn't expect anybody in our lifetime to see a sum like that again.
Okay, so not a mistake.
Not a mistake.
Okay, good.
Or a placeholder.
Or a placeholder. Good. Thank you.
Okay. Council, before we continue with the consent agenda, we got to hop to planning because it's 5:30 and we have one matter on planning. Madam Clerk.
Under agenda item 7.6.1, an application with respect to 418 Fourth Line West, a motion by Councillors Grandinetti and Christian, resolved that the report of the senior planner dated December 11, 2017 concerning rezoning, official plan amendment application A1117ZOP and draft plan of condominium application 57T 17502 be received, and that council defer this application to March 19, 2018. In your agenda, it was a February date, and I understand that the applicant has asked for it to be March 19 instead.
Mr. Tenazzo, can I ask you to briefly speak to this to give the viewers at home a sense of what we're dealing with?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The subject property is the Crimson Ridge Golf Course, and the proposal is to develop 48 new townhouse units upon the existing driving range. The applicant has requested a deferral. There's been a number of concerns that have arisen as a result of the circulation. Servicing has been one concern. There's some nearby pits and properties that have aggregate extraction potential, so those property owners have raised some land use compatibility concerns. And then lastly, the province has sent in a letter with some concerns related to provincial policy and whether or not this development would meet the test of limited residential development in a rural area. So the recommendation is to defer to the March 19th meeting. Thank you.
We have Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a procedural question. When it's the request of the applicant to defer these, is it necessary that it come before council?
We'll give that to the clerk.
Yes. You have to afford the opportunity for others who may be affected by the rezoning to speak against the postponement, even when in a case where you have the applicant agreeing to or requesting the postponement.
Okay.
So before we voted, I was going to ask if there was anybody here to speak against it, even though there's nobody present but us now. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Tenazzo? Seeing nobody here to speak either for or against the deferral, we'll call a vote. All in favor? It's carried. So we can go back to the consent agenda. Councillor Butland, are you finished?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Christian?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to speak on 6.7 if I could.
Actually, Councillor Christian, I was going to speak on 6.7.
Well, by all means do so. Just provide me my day in court, so to speak.
Well, it was going to be, I'm going to speak very briefly on it.
Okay.
So before you get to that, I wanted to recognize it as a really neat initiative. I think it's very consistent with a lot of what we've been discussing as a council, very consistent with some of what was discussed through the community adjustment process. It's very positive, and I just wanted to thank you for bringing this project forward, and Councillor Hollingsworth for supporting you on it, and I think it's a really neat initiative, and I think you did some good work on it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the comments, and really I was going to start off by talking about how through you we've been charged with taking a more proactive role in economic development and initiatives. So about a year and a half ago, I had heard that the Sioux Boys Golf Tournament, which raised money for Sioux area hospitals for several years, was being eliminated. They were shutting it down. And this tournament was a first-class event and was organized by former Siouxites, and they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I know that this group is very proud to be part of Sault Ste. Marie, to come from Sault Ste. Marie, and they are interested in continuing to help the community they call home. So I reached out to one of the original organizers and a personal family friend, Richard Nino. Rick is the executive vice president of Fiera Capital. He's the executive vice president, Business Development USA, and he's the chair of their European division. This gentleman is well connected, and he's from Sault Ste. Marie. I pitched this idea to him, this concept, and he really liked the idea, and he pledged his support at that time to help. So Mr. Nino, along with many other members of that association, are very well recognized and accomplished in their chosen field. So it made sense to reach out to them as expatriates to see if they'd want to participate in an initiative like this. And based on the evidence that we can see, the research we've done, this is a rather unique proposition. This is a project that I presented to you, Mr. Mayor, about a year ago, and to Tom Vare. And recently, Councillor Hollingsworth has graciously agreed to assist us, so I appreciate that. If Council approves the budget for the Sault Summit, it will be planned, it's tentatively planned for April the 21st, 2018 at Branksome Hall in Toronto. Branksome is a private all-girls school whose principal and CEO is a former citizen, Karen Jervich, who is quite accomplished in her own right. And she, when we pitched this idea to her, she in fact was very enthusiastic about it, and she offered her facility. The event will give us an opportunity to present an update for those that are attending on the city successes, any recent initiatives that we've made, and the challenges that we're going to be facing going forward. And the presentation at the beginning of the day will provide some context for the working group sessions that would follow late in the day. And the event is not intended to be a one-off. Rather, it's sort of we're hoping that it's the genesis for more dialogue, events, and planning initiatives in the future. So we're hoping to make it an ongoing thing. We're looking for about 50 attendees, most of which will likely come from Southern Ontario. And Councillor Hollingsworth, myself, and Mr. Vare are encouraging council and the public at large that if you have any names of anyone that you feel that could assist in making this an even better event, please get us that contact information. We have limited space, like we say, or as I say, we're looking for about 50. However, we have no guarantee of who can attend based on schedules. So the final list of attendees is wide open, and we can use any help you can provide. The final point I want to make is that I want council to know that no money has been spent, no contracts have been signed with Branksome, and no formal invitations have gone out. We wanted to wait until we got council's approval before we move forward.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. I just have a comment, if I may, Mayor. I want to say congratulations to Councillor Christian for bringing this forward. And again, another great example of your passion. And also to Mr. Vare for budgeting precious time to help through with this project. If I may say, this particular initiative that was originally developed by Councillor Christian has, again, so many opportunities because as everyone in this chamber and those that are viewing tonight's meeting knows how many successful suites there are inside our city and outside the city. So us taking the opportunity to basically tap into those individuals, I think is going to be a huge success for our future. And to add to that point, as we move forward in the city, basically planning what our future is going to look like, setting the roadmap, I also am a great believer that as we develop maybe future boards or committees, example EDC, that we may want to take one or two people from outside our community and place people on boards, because having their eyes and ears living outside of our city may help us to be exposed to other opportunities to help the growth of this city. So again, Councillor Christian, thank you for bringing this to us. And thank you also, Mayor, for supporting the idea.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to add to that and say, well done. Really great work. I've spoken with Paul about this for some time, and Sandra as well. I know Karen extremely well. She's been a friend since high school, and she's a real go-getter, and Branksome Hall is highly respected all over the world. They have campuses in Malaysia and other parts of the world, so they're extremely well connected with many people across the globe. It's something that it's come into its time because of what we can do to keep in touch through texting and other social medias once we make these linkages. Dr. Frank Sarlo in 1998, when he created the Homecoming, Mr. Butler, you'll recall, That was one of the visions that we had at a homecoming in 1998. So here we are 19 years later, we're finally able to do it. We had what we called the Sioux Club at EDC at the time, S-A-U-L-T, and I thank you for spelling this, S-A-U-L-T, Councillor Christian. We had that conversation, thank you for that, as opposed to S-O-O. Very Canadian, very Sault Ste. Marie Canadian. But it's really critically important to be able to do the follow-up and stay connected. The going down is fantastic, and that's your first for sure, but it's something that 19 years ago we just could not do that. The technology just wasn't there. You're trying to write letters and so on. But even at that time, we had 2 or 3 key individuals that stayed in touch with Bruce Strapp as the CEO of EDC in those days and did bring some impact to our community. So this, I can't imagine, it's limitless what the potential is, and just thank you so much. We're just seeing this tonight at what appears to be a very simple report. It's not. There's been a lot of work go into this, I know, Paul, and certainly Mr. Vare, thank you for supporting it, and Mr. Mayor, I think it aligns with our vision for the common cause for Sault Ste. Marie and our action plan. So thank you for the work.
Councillor Butland.
Yes, I certainly want to get on the bandwagon for this one, and I think the whole community will. I'm April 21st. I hope that's not too ambitious to get these 50 people, but you've done obviously a whole lot of work behind previous to now. And so I don't know if that's etched in stone. And I'm assuming, as it's the form of a question, the first session in Toronto will be all these people with a face-to-face on the first meeting. Afterwards, it's a technological discussion amongst the group. Is that?
Councillor Christian's mic.
First of all, I was remiss. I do actually have to thank Mr. Vare and Councillor Hollingsworth specifically. I do thank them. It's a joint effort. I brought the idea forward. It's a joint effort. To your question, Councillor Butland, the original meeting is an opportunity to get everybody to sit down and say, here we are. This is the Sault Ste. Marie it came from, and this is what it looks like now. Part of the discussion will be not necessarily establishing a framework, giving them a framework going forward. Part of the discussion is what are the best steps going forward? We want their input as well. We don't want to dictate what the future holds, but maybe guide them, but certainly get their input on what our next steps would be, with the intent of ensuring that this is an ongoing process, that we can stay in contact with them, that we're moving forward constantly. So beyond that, I mean, the program is still being developed, but that's essentially what we're hoping to take away from it.
Super. And if I could continue, Mr. Mayor, you talked about mainly Southern Ontario, and I'm hoping you're, and I'm sure you are, out of province, out of country, because there are worldwide former residents of Sault Ste. Marie that have made a mark. And and will you accept names from the entire community? Say, hey, what about this person? I'm sure the media will look after that.
Yes.
Hey, I know somebody. I was working in a very small one that pales in comparison to this in clinical research. We have some neurologists in North America that are exceedingly renowned and famous. So reaching out to them, they said, yeah, we wouldn't mind participating. So that's just a tip of the iceberg. Yes. So Godspeed. Let's go for it. It's a good one. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Anything else in the consent agenda? Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. 6.4, 2018 boring bylaws.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Question. I understand that staff's looking to, I believe, increasing the amount, the cutoff amount. For example, capital projects would be up to $15 million, I believe. So my question is this. I'm still new to council, but do we have a list of where we have borrowed currently? And do we see this list periodically at council?
I think we just went through all of that process, but yeah, all of that information is available to us. All of our debt levels, what project we're borrowing for, what project we will borrow for. It's all available to us.
Is it possible that we can maybe, I know that if we pass this, that staff will have the opportunity to go ahead and borrow up to the 15 million or 10 million?
No, that's not what this does.
Okay.
No. No, maybe perhaps we can have the treasurer speak to the borrowing bylaw, but staff can't borrow anything without.
Right, without our consent. Right.
Without our consent. So, and knowledge. So they don't borrow, staff doesn't go out and borrow monies unless it's come through this chamber. So
Right.
you would know of all the borrowing.
Right.
But maybe we can have the treasurer explain the borrowing bylaw to Councillor Hollingsworth.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Hollingsworth, this isn't setting out borrowings that we need for capital on an ongoing basis. It's not long-term debt. This is for short-term borrowings to take us through if we have a capital project that might be funded maybe through long-term debt, and we need to just borrow on a temporary basis in order to complete that project. So all of these projects that we would be borrowing for are already under the capital budget, as well as the financing. Just to let you know, we've never borrowed under these in as long as I can remember. We're required to do this every year. It sets out our limits, and it's just for short-term borrowings until the taxes are collected.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else on the borrowing bylaw? Councillor Shoemaker.
I don't have a question.
Oh, no? Okay.
Not on this.
Okay, nobody else on that one. Councillor Shoemaker, you have something else on the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, 6.12, asphalt paving restrictions.
Okay, go ahead. I think we have the city engineer here. He might be the person to speak to this.
Thank you. This report appears to be a response to Councillor Christian and my motion about paving on arterial roads at rush hour. I understand that from the report that there will be some changes coming to paving on arterial roads during rush hour. And can you give us a summary of what those will be, Mr. Elliott?
Mr. Mayor to Councillor Shoemaker, the two changes that we're suggesting is the use of off-duty police officers and cruisers when we're paving near intersections. Because our experience, we have used them in the past, in a few years, and our experience is that they're very helpful in assisting traffic when we're near intersections. The other thing we can do is, and this usually happens now anyway, but we can specify that the line painting itself is done in off-peak hours.
Okay, so all with the hope of moving traffic more efficiently around the city, correct?
Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker, that's correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Elliott.
Okay, anybody else on that matter? Anything else on the consent agenda? Madam Clerk, get back here quick, please. Oh, did Councillor Fada have his arm?
That's fine.
See? Okay, go, please, quickly. So did you already read the consent agenda motion?
I did not.
Well, read it quick before Councillor Fada puts his hand back up.
Motion by Councillors Grant, Kennedy, and Butland that all items listed under date December 11, 2017, Agenda Item 6 consent agenda be approved as recommended, save and accept Agenda Items 6.2 and 6.10.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. So we will move to 6.2, Code of Conduct, Council and Local Boards. Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to thank the committee, yourself and Councillors Hupinen and Shoemaker, and I had the privilege of chairing this committee for about the third time since I've been on council. I was looking back in resolutions, and I have a resolution dated August 24th, 2009, moved by myself and Councillor Mick, whereas in the spirit of good governance, elected representatives and appointed representatives of the city should follow the highest standards of ethical behavior in the course of their duties to ensure that public confidence and trust is maintained. Whereas there's no specific council code of conduct policy, recognizing council's conduct is partly informed by the Municipal Government Act procedures and committees. Whereas developing a council code of conduct is a growing trend among municipal governments in Ontario, the most recent being London in 2008, St. Catharines in 2009, whereas a code of conduct exists for city employees and should be for municipal elected officials, members of boards and committee too. Now therefore be it resolved, the committee of council be formed, blah, 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 blah. So I had the pleasure of chairing that in 2009. Haven't we come a long way? Now we have we have legislation that will be coming in March 2019, I believe, Madam Clerk is correct, it's March 2019, when no longer will there be an option for municipalities to not have a code of conduct. I think we can thank the City of Toronto for some of that. And way back when, we all know what happened there. And truthfully, there wasn't a code of conduct that could be applied in those days to deal with a matter that they had that was quite public around North America. So the code of conduct that we had, it's referred to in the report. This is about the third version, I guess, in a way, but in fact, it's diametrically different from what we started out with. We started out with something simply saying we have a code of conduct and here's a few rules. That was it. It was very, very, I guess, just it existed and that was it, but it was certainly nothing like what will be required for legislation. So I want to thank certainly our Deputy CAO and Clerk, Mr. White, because he and Deputy Clerk Tazinski stay on top of these things through AMCTO, the Association of Municipal Clerks and Treasurers, and they have been working with this council for the last, certainly year, and we finally have this at a place where we're ready to bring it to council in a draft. And thank you. I'm sorry, Solicitor Kenny, I forgot to mention that you were also on that with our staff from the clerk's office. Thank you as a resource. So a couple of points I just want to draw to council's attention. What's on your table is, I asked Malcolm if he would put it there for us, from the City of Kingston. And the reason I asked for that to be put there is because there's a couple of points on the City of Kingston's that I'd just like to add into ours. When you look at our Appendix A, which outlines the informal complaint process, which I think is critically important, and hopefully the informal process is what would actually be used more than anything else, which is virtually there for anyone to approach council or local boards if they have an issue around what they see maybe appearing as a contravening of the Code of Conduct. In Kingston's, they have, we have everything in these 5 notes under informal complaints, the process. We have all of these as are in the Kingston version. However, the one thing in the Kingston that I picked up on that I'd really like to add through you, Madam Clerk, is under number 1, advise the member in writing that the behavior or activity appears to contravene the Code of Conduct. And then further, as it says in the Kingston one, to provide the specific provision of the Code of Conduct that may have been contravened. And the reason I'm saying that is that I think that it gives a start point then for whatever that informal discussion is, to point specifically within the code where it is that the person that's filing the complaint with the offender, shall we say, from a local board or member council, they can point to the code where that specifically is. In the Kingston version, they have exactly what we have for item 1 here, advising the member in writing that the behavior or activity appears to contravene the code, but then it goes further in a second bullet point that we don't have that says, identify to the member the specific provision of the code. So I can give you that wording, or Madam Clerk, do you have it?
I have it.
Thank you. So if council is agreeable to that, I'd like to add that just to tighten that up a wee bit. And then the other one, I had raised the issue around the Integrity Commissioner, but I'm going to ask our Deputy CAO Clerk, Mr. White, if you would speak to why it's not appropriate that we would put that in at this time, around referring to Integrity Commissioner, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, for the role of the Integrity Commissioner, after the Code of Conduct is approved by Council, the committee that was struck to look at that will also have to meet to consider how to select and what model to use to have an Integrity Commissioner work for the municipality, as well as work out more detail on the exact role of the Integrity Commissioner. And really, until you've considered that and brought a recommendation to Council, you shouldn't think of adding that one that you highlighted from the City of Kingston.
Thank you. So even though I gave council a copy of that with an asterisk, you can ignore that. And then the only other change I was asking that we would consider is under the actual draft code itself. It has a reference to use of city property. Item A, it reads reasonable and incidental personal use of, and I'm asking that we just add 2 words, office space, comma, And then it goes on to say equipment such as computers, fax machines, cell phones, etc., where the city incurs no additional cost relating to such use, and the use is of limited duration and frequency. And the rationale for me wanting to add the office space piece is certainly for members of City Council, we don't have an office per se, but the councilor's room is our office. And there may be occasions, and again, as it says here, limited duration and frequency, that we may come in there for some reason other than when it's a council meeting day, or we may have company that's here from out of town and want to show them a view or something like that. I think it would be appropriate that we're able to have that access to our office space, and it's not covered elsewhere in the code. So with council's indulgence, again, I'd like to add just those two words. Is there anything there, Madam Clerk, that is that okay?
I've drafted a motion. I need a seconder.
Okay.
Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. So that was it. I don't know if Councillor Hoopen and Councillor Shoemaker have any further comments. Obviously, the Mayor doesn't. He's not here.
Councillor Nero, first of all.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I have a question for Mr. White. This procedure has an informal complaint procedure that it appears, and the way I'm reading this, the Integrity Commissioner could get involved in and mediate a solution. Is that the informal complaint procedure?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Nero, the informal complaint process wouldn't necessarily involve the Integrity Commissioner.
But
Pardon?
But it could?
We still have to work that out when we work out the actual role of the Integrity Commissioner, which will be brought back to Council as a whole to approve before you go through a process of identifying and selecting an Integrity Commissioner.
Okay. If I can just maybe refer to Appendix C, where it says, note, should the Integrity Commissioner determine that a member of Council or local board has violated any provisions, so on and so on, he or she is obligated to report such violation with any recommendation for sanction to Council. So when you're determining if the Integrity Commissioner, in fact, can get involved in an informal process, just by that, Appendix C that's already in this report, does that not work against the informal process? If I'm capturing this properly.
For the informal process wouldn't necessarily be using Appendix C, Councillor Nero. It is a request for advice from the Integrity Commissioner, so it is a bit more formal. However, an informal complaint wouldn't necessarily be using a form that we're providing. It would be something being sent directly to the councillor by the person that has the concerns. We do say that we're asking that it be done in writing, but we aren't specifically making them follow a form.
Okay. And I guess right there, if you get that far in the process and the Integrity Commissioner is aware of a misconduct, then doesn't that ask him or her to report it?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Nero, yes, it does. If you have gotten to the point of including the Integrity Commissioner.
Okay, and you're not there yet?
Not on an informal complaint process, and that's the reason for having an informal complaint process, is you try and get something resolved without needing to get to the point of involving the Integrity Commissioner.
Okay.
Is that it, Councillor Nero?
Yep.
Councillor Hoopen is next.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I just have a question for Mr. White, if you may. We didn't talk about this at any of the meetings that we had, but would there be something, if they didn't go to their councillor, could there be a hotline or a web link to the city website that people could go to if they wanted to just go directly to the corporation? Would that be an idea? I'm just trying to envision how this is going to work, and if there's someone out there that has an issue, what would be a clear starting point? And to me, that would make sense, but I'm just not 100% sure on that.
That question is for whom?
That would be for Mr. White, I believe.
City Clerk?
Yes,
Through you,
please.
Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Hoopanen, I'm sure as we formalize the arrangement for an integrity commissioner and sort out the exact processes, we'll be able to advise more clearly on how that would work. But since we're not quite there yet, I'd want to hold off on providing anything specific.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you, Mr. White. And I also wanted to mention that many municipalities that are beginning the codes of conduct, which are compliance-based, are going on forward with the intention of expanding it to a code of ethics as well. So I would like to maybe keep that on the back burner, and down the road we could try to implement, because I think the two could easily complement each other. Code of ethics, which I think it's integrity-based, so the two could work together. That's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I know, Councillor Myers, I've been through the around the world on the codes of conduct and code of ethics for many, many years, and all the committees and AMO and all the other groups. And hopefully the next one will be the perfect one. This one maybe is the perfect one of code of conduct. Is that it? Then we have to vote on this one?
I just have, it will be passed as the bylaw, but I do have a motion by Councillors Myers and Hollingsworth with respect to those amendments. Resolved that the draft code of conduct listed under item 11.1.21, bylaw 2017-242, be amended by inserting the words office space in the second bullet A under the section use of city property found on page 3 of the document, and further that appendix A under the same item be amended by adding the words to identify the specific provision of the code of conduct that is alleged to have been contravened under item 1 of the informal resolution process.
Thank you. I have one more question, I believe. Go ahead, Councillor Fata.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acting Mayor. No, I just wanted to ask Councillor Myers, was there an opportunity or a satisfactory opportunity for the public input on this whole process as far as you're concerned?
I'm going to let the Deputy CAO and City Clerk address that, Councillor Fata.
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to Councillor Fata. Certainly the meetings of the committee were advertised and posted along with the agendas, as is our usual process. There was also the formal involvement of the Ratepayers Association, who had some interest and provided some specific feedback as we moved through the process.
Thank you. Just one, go ahead, Con.
No, that was...
there was just some question that was raised by someone. I just wanted to pass on that question. And it looks like it did go through the proper process, and people were made aware of it. Yeah.
Mr. Fata, Councillor, I should just say all of our meetings are publicly posted on the website, and they're open to the public. So.
And just in terms of the Integrity Commissioner, is this the uppermost level that we will be going to in terms of dealing with any issues as far as code of conduct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, I'm going to defer that to our Deputy CEO, City Clerk. He's referred to it. That is a part 2, basically, of the committee's work. We'll come back, but I'll let Mr. White address that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Fata. The Integrity Commissioner would report to Council, and Council would make a decision on a recommendation of the Integrity Commissioner should they have investigated and found an infraction under the Code of Conduct. While that is the case, there are some very rare cases where a member has wanted to appeal the finding of an Integrity Commissioner. I would have to get you further information as to how that works exactly. I do know that it comes with a fairly extensive legal bill.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You were the last person on this list that Councillor Turco left for me. Is there anybody else on this matter? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. That was good work. Thank you, Councillor Myers. I think we are in a much better place today with our code of conduct than we were prior to today, and I think you did good work there, and I want to thank the other councillors who served on the committee with us, Councillor Hoopanen and Councillor Shoemaker. Thank you.
Under agenda item 8.1, downtown...
No, 6.10. Oh, no, we did that.
We did that
up
front. Yep.
Yep, sorry.
Okay.
My lists were wrong. Apologize.
Under Agenda Item 8.1, Downtown Safety Strategy, a motion by Councillors Hollingsworth and Myers, whereas City Council is investing significantly in supporting the downtown development strategy, and whereas creating a safe community is important across the community and in particular should be given the utmost consideration and inclusion in the downtown development strategy, and whereas development of options that increase the feeling of safety in the downtown area at all hours will have a positive economic effect as people may remain in the area longer. Now therefore be it resolved that downtown safety strategy be identified and included as part of the downtown development strategy, and further be it resolved that such a strategy be developed in consultation with the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service, the Downtown Association, and other related community groups seeking to increase public safety.
Councillor Hollingsworth, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. Just very briefly. Just so I wanted to basically say that our downtown, once again, has a lot of potential. And the reason that I brought this to council along with Councillor Myers is that the feedback we have been receiving from our constituents that enjoy walking downtown, and also just talking to a few merchants expressing their concern. Unfortunately, there's been break-ins to our merchants down on Queen Street, and they have asked if there's any way that we as council can help them. I do understand that there are businesses right now on Queen Street that have set up their own video cameras, but in all honesty, I still feel that it's our role to try to increase the safety, not just for our merchants or those that are in business down there, but for those individuals, families that enjoy walking down the streets. As you may confirm with me, our downtown is important because it is the heart of our city, or one of the many arteries of our city. And so having a healthy heart or a healthy downtown is essential to having a strong city and to basically send the right message to our citizens and to the tourists that visit our city. So I hope that council tonight will support that staff work closely with the Downtown Association to see how we can make our wonderful downtown a little more safe and comfortable, that people will want to stay after the tree lighting, for example, and want to wander down 7 days a week. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to that matter? Councillor Grandinetti?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This issue was brought up at last week's Downtown Association meeting, and we're actually possibly talking about sending out an RFQ or an RFP for possible security cameras at intersections or along Queen Street, Gore Street. Another issue, and I don't know who could answer this question, is Sault College had the law students patrolling the downtown area at one time. Is there still, are we still partnering with the law students from Sault College patrolling the downtown area? Could anyone answer that for me, please?
I don't know. I don't know if that was something that the city was doing, but I don't believe.
I know that was part of their program. Our boy did that 2 or 3 times a week volunteering.
I think so, but I think that was through the college, and
yes,
I'm not sure that that was through the college and the city. It might have been through the college and the Downtown Association or the college and the police services, but I don't believe that the city was involved in that partnership.
Thank you.
But you know what? We'll have staff look into that, and if I'm mistaken, we'll let you know at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Anybody else on that motion? All in favor? Carried.
Under Agenda Item 8.2, Pedestrian Crossing, Queen and Lake Streets, a motion by Councillors Myers and Hollingsworth. Whereas in 2001 and in 2007, City Council received reports regarding options to provide a safer means for pedestrian crossing of Queen Street at Lake Street to access Bellevue Park. And whereas the report to City Council dated September 24, 2007 states, since warrants do not justify any additional traffic control devices, staff have been investigating the use of refuge islands in the vicinity of the Queen Lake Street intersection, as well as the area of Bellevue Park. These islands are placed at locations where pedestrians can cross a lane of traffic onto the island and wait until a gap in the traffic allows them to cross the remaining lane. They are normally located in a center turning lane. It is felt that the island would give protection to the pedestrian due to the fact that the island is not located in a traveled lane. And whereas the report further states that this proposal will require the changing of the lane configuration along Queen Street from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. The initiative is being put forward since Public Works staff is aware that the cycling master plan has placed as one of its top priorities the establishing of a cycling route on Queen Street East starting east of Pym Street. This will require the changing of Queen Street to a 3-lane configuration. Public Works staff supports this initiative due to the fact that the 3-lane configuration will help to solve turning movements at the Pine-Queen Street intersection, as well as provide a lane setup that allows the installation of refuge islands. And whereas changing Queen Street from 4 lanes to 3 lanes has been completed, now therefore be it resolved that staff be requested to report back to City Council regarding the installation of a refuge island at Queen and Lake Street or any other recommendations around creating a safer option for pedestrian crossing in this area.
Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like this is Groundhog Day or something tonight, everything going back here to things from the past. But when I came on council, this is something that had been reported to council about 3 years prior to that by then Commissioner Pat McCauley. And then Pat retired and Jim Elliott had the pleasure of writing this report. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy CEO Larry Girardi, now you get to take the baton here. So it's pretty straightforward. I guess that, Mr. Girardi, if there's anything that's changed since these years when this was the direction that was being recommended, obviously, I guess you could articulate that now if you wish, or if it just comes back and report, that's fine too. But do you see any problem with proceeding with this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, certainly not. There's no problem with proceeding with it. We will review the idea of the islands. It may not be the direction to go, only because you're affecting the turning lanes, but there are options now, which there weren't in the past. So there's also the option of pedestrian crossovers. So certainly we'll bring a report back reflecting what the best idea or the best way to move forward.
Thank you. I think that when this first came to me as my brand new eager councillor that I was in 2007, I stood on the north side of Queen at Lake because somebody told me there was a hill there. There's no hill there. And then I looked to the west and sure enough, I was trying to cross the 4 lanes of traffic at the time. And yeah, the cars come up over that hill just enough that, boy, you have to scoot to get across there. So most of our population with families and so on lives north of Queen Street in that particular vicinity of Ward 2 where they're trying to get to the park. And sometimes it's older people, sometimes it's young families with pushing a buggy and so on. And there's no question it's a challenge to get there. So there's a lot of people that are inquiring about this from time to time, Mr. Girardi. So thank you. We look forward to that back.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
I just want to echo Councillor Myers' comments. And since I've been on council, which has only been 2 years, a very short time, I kid you not, I have received well over 5 to 10 calls. And no exaggeration about, I do have a small child who's in a baby carriage, and it's very uncomfortable trying to race across those the traffic. And if all honesty, a lot of families go to the park around 5 and 4:30 when sometimes the traffic flow is increasing. So I look forward to the report to Mr. Girardi, and I'm hoping that we can come up with some satisfactory solution for the safety of everyone.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This request is a classic example of why we have to be careful what we say in response to motions that come forward at other meetings, because every comment that Councillor Myers and Councillor Hollingsworth used against my light motion 3 weeks ago applies to this, which is that it's more work for staff. It should be on the back burner until we deal with more important things. It's a one-off, not part of a grander plan. And it's not what we should be spending our time on. We had a report that told us that this couldn't be done unless there was a 3-lane road. This should have been brought forward at the time when the road was being converted to 3 lanes. I don't support this motion, not because of the reasons that I've given, which is that it's a one-off, that it's not what we should be spending our time on, that it's more work for staff, and that it should go on the back burner, but because this is 3 years after Queen Street's been changed to a 3-lane street. This should have been looked at while the street conversion was going on.
Okay, anybody else on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried.
Under Agenda Item 8.3, related to city employees, a motion by Councillors Grandinetti and Shoemaker, whereas a perception exists locally that family members of existing staff are given preference for city positions, and whereas such a perception negatively affects the trust of residents in the operations of the city, and whereas a city policy already exists that regulates nepotism in the city's hiring practices, and whereas full transparency of the facts is the best way to counter this perception, now therefore be it resolved that once yearly staff report to Council on how many of the city's employees across all departments are related to one another without the use of names of those employees, but simply by providing numbers and percentages for Council's information.
Do you want to speak to this, Councillor Grandinetti?
No, it's just the last little while I've received a few phone calls about people that have applied for jobs and they not get them, and then you hear that a friend or relative of someone that works here received the job. And this goes back a few years, that back in 2010 when I was acting mayor, when Mayor John passed away. A relative of a city employee received a job that was not qualified for. I received a call back then.
This is when, in 2010?
Yeah, I'm just giving you this doesn't go back to them, just telling you what happened back then. Because what happens afterwards is, this ends up costing the taxpayer money when you hire someone that's not qualified for the job, and then we end up paying for it for them to get qualified for the job. But basically, I think I think that we have too many relatives and friends of city staff that get hired here, and it doesn't give the opportunity to someone that's not related to get a job here. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Shoemaker, do you want to speak to that as the seconder?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important, obviously, to note that the motion doesn't call for us to use names, so we're not looking to finger point in any way, shape, or form here. What I do think is important is that we simply show the community what percentage of folks here are related to one another. I think it would, in fact, be much lower than people presume it is. You know, there's this perception out there that, oh, you have to be related if you're going to get a job at City Hall. I think showing the percentage, if it was, I don't know if it's 1% or 5%, I think that would alleviate a lot of the probably incorrect perception. I don't know because I don't know what the percentage is, but I think it would alleviate a lot of the concern and satisfy the community.
So this before we get into I'll ask either one of you can answer this as a move in the seconder. How would you anticipate, I need you to define related for me, okay, because our in-laws related, our spouses related, our first cousins related.
Daughter, husband, spouse.
Okay, but you don't define it, hold on, you don't define it in the resolution. So council's clear, what does related mean to you? Because to me, the way it's used, it's a very broad and general word. And if staff was to come back and narrow it, I think staff is not able to narrow the word. They'd have to use the word in its most broad sense. So I'd like an indication from you as the mover and seconder, what related means to you. And I'd also like an indication of how you would expect staff to go about doing this.
I think related would be whatever related is in our existing city policy that regulates the hiring of related employees. So I don't actually know what that definition is, but there must be one within it. How would staff go about doing it? I presume we have a staff directory. They'd have to determine who was related within that directory.
We have two Frank Cochimilios in IT who are not related to each other. So they have the same name. Maybe I should have used me. I am not related to the Provenzanos at the fire department. So the whole community knows that. I am not related to the Provenzanos at the fire department. How would city staff know that I'm not related to the Provenzanos at the fire department? Because you would presume naturally, I think most people presume, that the Provenzanos in the community are related. Not true. There's multiple Provenzano families and we're not all related. But I am not related to the Provenzanos in the fire department. So staff isn't able to determine that from the directory. I think staff knows that Frank and Frank aren't related to each other. But they wouldn't know that Carlo and Marcel and I aren't related to each other. So how would staff determine that? By looking at the directory. Staff would have to actually go through some kind of interview process. Well, it's council one. I'd like...
So, just for clarification, I don't think asking if you're related to someone is against the Human Rights Code, just to clarify what has been stated here. I do think you'd be able to determine when someone is hired, whether or not they are, I mean, we have a policy on hiring family. Sure. So we must be able to determine whether or not someone that we're hiring is a family member of another family member.
But staff would have to take all of the employees in the city and figure out a system where retroactively they can go through those employees and determine who has relations with another employee. Yes. And that's what you want staff to do. Okay, so if that's clear to council, now we'll take comments on the motion to Councillor Myers.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Provenzano, to Mr. Nero, Commissioner of Human Resources. I'd like to hear from him as to what we're permitted to ask of staff and what we're not. I get the point at the time of hiring, but further, there are many close relationships, people sleeping together and so on and so forth in a relationship that has nothing to do with them being related from a legal point of view. So, I mean, if this is about hiring people whom you feel for some reason or other ought not to be hired, I'm really struggling with this. I can't understand. So I'd like to hear from our Commissioner of Human Resources how he would see the way forward on this procedure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Myers, and I'd like to echo the comments from the Mayor. The way it's presented presents a challenge. While technically it's not a violation of human rights, in essence, the methodology required to determine the sanguinity of our employees would result in something that, quite frankly, we couldn't possibly rely on as valid data. Secondly, there is no motion or force where I could instruct employees, if I were directed to ask them, to volunteer a response. There has to be a good, reasonable cause link between the asking of the question and the result, and I quite frankly don't see that in this particular lay of the land, if you will. I can certainly tell you that for my 15 years here, there's never been any advocacy that we shall only consider relatives or we shall not consider relatives. We look at the best qualified candidate. To my knowledge, we've never hired anyone unqualified, at least in the 15 years that I've been around. But certainly there's no active campaign one way or another when it comes to recruiting.
Thank you.
Councillor Huppanen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a good topic to be discussing because there are people out there that are thinking that. I have a question to Mr. Nero. I have a sibling that was a director for the LCBO in London, Ontario, and their policy was very strict when it came to hiring any kind of relatives. Could we reach out to an organization such as that just to find out what their policy was, like so that we could have something, a little bit more structured? It's difficult, but if we need something, it's just something that we could try.
We do have a policy, Councillor Huppanen.
Oh, we do?
Yes, we have. I don't know if it'd be fair to call it an anti-nepotism policy, but we have some. We'll let the Commissioner of Human Resources.
Is it listed anywhere in the website, the city documents, bylaws, anywhere? I couldn't find it. That's why I didn't think we had one.
It is, and I think that's a different discussion. So if there's a motion to improve upon or strengthen our human resource policies and procedures, that's a different discussion and debate, one that I think would be appropriate. But this is just strictly relates to recording data.
Okay, that clears it. Thank you.
Okay, and so we have Councillor Bruni, then Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I still would like clarification on family. Is it son, daughter, niece, nephew, uncle, first cousin? I still need clarification for that. And possibly Councillor Grandinetti can reword it to specifically say or explain what is a relative.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Nero, what is it in the existing policy? Is it in stone that it's son, daughter, spouse? There's got to be something in the policy, is there not?
through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Grandinetti, right now the current policy prohibits any member of the immediate family reporting to one another, so that there's no potential favoritism when it comes to the supervisory subordinate relationship, and that's detailed in the immediate family. And as per the current legislation, that changes from time to time, so we don't specifically delineate what that means, because the family law is ever evolving, as I'm sure most of the lawyers on council know that. But I can attest to 3 occurrences in 15 years that I recall where we had to actually implement the policy in order to protect against that relationship from actually happening.
What was the intention of the motion? When you wrote the word related, what did you intend?
Well, I was thinking more spouse, child, because I'm not even going to get into this in detail, but I can name more than a handful of people right now that have a spouse, a child that are working here. And like I said, I'm going back a few years ago that someone was given a job that wasn't qualified for the job.
You're going back to 2010.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying that this happens every day, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Grandinetti, it does not happen every day.
Yeah.
That's
I will challenge this tomorrow on the phone. I won't do it in public tonight.
Okay, but you've got no basis for the statement that happens every day. You can admit to that.
No.
Okay, so Councilor Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a couple of issues here. One is we do have a policy we have a hiring practices policy. If I understand the resolution, and I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but somehow it's a way to try to get to those hires that take place at the city that are that discussion that people think takes place, that it's not in my department, but can you hire my niece who's looking for a job in this department? Regardless, those are 2 separate issues. The HR does have a hiring policy, and they're following, labor codes and doing what they must do and what's fair to the community. But getting back to the point about how in fact we would actually go about trying to find out who's related to whom, I just don't know how that's done. Secondly, on one hand, we've got a resolution or a comment made that we just want to prove to the public that it doesn't happen, and then the mover's saying that it happens every day. So I'm struggling with the intent of the resolution, and even if we went ahead with it, I don't know where it leads us. I don't know where we go, even if we could do it. So I understand the intent. I want to be transparent. I want to think that, we're hiring the right people. Another thing to consider, even though somebody's related, doesn't mean that they're not qualified for the job. As a matter of fact, some people that get the job are very qualified and they happen to be related. So, I mean, we're painting with a broad brush here, and I'm uncomfortable with it.
So we have Councillor Fata, then Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will state that in the last 10 or 11 years, I've had a conversation with a number of people, staff employees, who've seen people come in to the employment with the city and telling me the story about how this person got in and he wasn't qualified. It should have, in his opinion or in her opinion, it was that the promotion should have gone within. That was the way the conversation went. The person that came into the position was an outsider, didn't have the same qualifications. And in the conclusion that I got from that conversation was that somebody got in because they knew somebody, plain and simple. How can you avoid that? I suppose you can't, because that person who's a current employee is not going to bring it up. It was brought up to me just in conversation, and I certainly appreciated where it was coming from. I certainly felt that it was a clear statement that somebody got in, an outsider, because they knew somebody. But how you get around it? Nepotism has been around for 1,000 years. So we're talking about something that's been going on forever, and it'll continue, especially in small towns. I'm sure it happens in Toronto and London and Ottawa. One thing that I will say, though, that I have concerns with, and this concerns police services. Again,
Counselor, this wouldn't apply to police services.
I'm just gonna bring this out just in terms of the
No,
conversation.
let's stay on the motion. If you want to raise an issue with police services, come to the police service board meeting. We'll give you standing at the police service board meeting, and then you can raise the issue there. But this
I'm just gonna spend 30 seconds and just to bring up the example of where
you're not going to spend.
There's a clear
Counselor
perception.
Fata, you're actually not going to spend 30 seconds on that because it's not relevant to the motion. It doesn't come into this agenda. It doesn't factor into these stats. You are welcome to come to the police service board, and you are welcome to raise the issue at the police service board.
So what you're leaving me then is with no choice but to go public with it, so that way the public can hear what I have to say.
Absolutely. You come to the police service board. My point, Councillor Fata, is that's an issue. If you're raising an issue with how they hire a police, go to police and raise the issue with how they hire, and I won't object to your right to do that. It's not, we don't hire police here. That's not, you're confusing
It's part of this
the issue.
conversation. They are
It's
city
not part of this
employees.
No, they're not, Councillor Fata. They're employees of the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service Board. So you have to go to the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service Board. Their collective agreement is at the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service Board. They are not, we do not make any decisions that govern the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service.
It's not a matter of making decisions. It's a matter of fact that they are city employees. They're paid for by taxpayers of City of Sault Ste. Marie, and everybody should have a fair and equal opportunity to be hired as a police officer. And
Councillor
the clear
Fata,
perception is that is not the case.
Councillor Fata, the same way the media is here tonight to report on your comments, the media will be at the Sault Ste. Marie Police Service Board meeting, and they will be there to report on your comments there. And no one will stop you from coming to the Police Service Board meeting.
Okay.
So do we have any other, we have Councillor Butland?
To Mr. Nero, do we have a nepotism problem in the city of Sault Ste. Marie? Hiring?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes or no?
I don't believe so.
This is not an issue. It was made an issue. And an example of 10 years ago, and then it's happening every day. Well, I'd like to have one concrete example from last week where this nepotism has reared its ugly head. And if it's happening every day, you know full well that's a gross exaggeration. It is not happening. And we're talking about perception, and the very fact that we've had this discussion puts some credibility and credence to the fact that it's happening. It may happen, I don't know. Occasionally, I don't know, but I don't believe it's rampant. And almost, and Councillor Christian almost hit upon it, I think, it's almost reverse nepotism. If somebody who is related to somebody who works for us applies for a job and is fully qualified, you say, oh, gee, I don't know. That's a cousin of so-and-so in this department. We better be careful. That's the reverse. This is a non-starter. And once again, we're after individuals or we are adding to the perception that really isn't there. And I've had a couple of incidents over the years, and one of them in particular said, and I asked, I said, what is your name and what did you apply for? And I found out very quickly he wasn't qualified. And that's, well, I'm getting to details. This is a non-issue in Sault Ste. Marie. Let's not make it one. Thank you.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Well said, Councillor Butland. I just want to reiterate and believe that council is a governance. We should be focusing more on governance. And if I may say, if you feel that maybe our human resources policies need to be reviewed, maybe a motion in the future can be brought forward. But right now, I think we should focus back on the governance side. Thank you.
Councillor Nero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm of the opinion that this resolution really doesn't address the concerns that the mover has brought out. I mean, his concerns, the councillor's concerns are about merit. If we have those kind of problems, then we should be addressing those directly with staff and approaching them, and becomes an HR matter with our hiring policy. Again, directly to the nepotism, if our city staff, if our staff is not following our current policy, as was said earlier, then we need to deal with that. The resolution should be to review our policy. It should not be to give us a percentage of how many of our employees are related. Because at the end of the day, that really doesn't show anything. Those are my comments.
Councilor, Mr. Nero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and at the opportunity to embarrass myself, I do need to apologize to council. There was an updated hiring of relatives policy number 1.3, and it's an expanded definition of relatives beyond what the Human Rights Code contemplates. So it's a greater control for us when dealing with hiring of relatives and who can be supervised. So we had quite an expansive list, and it even calls for an exception to this provision where council would indeed be notified of any exceptions to the policy. So I'm more confident than ever, and again, I apologize. I should have known that the policy was updated. So
look, we're going to call a vote. I'm just going to briefly speak to it, then we'll call a vote. I don't see how this motion at all achieves its goal, because to me, the data it produces isn't transparent at all and doesn't tell a story. Councillor Christian rightfully points out that you could have a qualified person related to another qualified person. They might not have got the job through nepotism. They might have got the job through a bona fide merit-based process, and they're the best person for the job. So you don't tell any fulsome story. The overall objective and point, this corporation should have merit-based hiring practices, I 100% agree with. If you see an issue with our policies as they currently stand, and as a governance body, if you want to look at those policies and you want to work on those policies, I will support you 100%. In my 3 years in this office, there's nothing I have harped on more than merit-based hiring. And we have to make sure for the betterment of our community and this municipal corporation that we have proper merit-based hiring in place. This motion doesn't assist whatsoever in that respect. I don't think it's going to produce any data that's helpful to anybody. So I don't support it for that reason. Madam Clerk, are we calling a recorded vote? Did you gentlemen want to record a vote on this? No? All in favor of the motion? Recorded vote? Okay. I thought you shook your head. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Butland?
Against.
Councillor Myers?
Against.
Councillor Bruni?
Against.
Councillor Nero?
Against.
Councillor Shoemaker?
For.
Councillor Grandinetti?
For.
Councillor Hollingsworth?
Against.
Councillor Hoopinen?
Against.
Councillor Compottage?
Against.
Councillor Christian?
Against.
Councillor Fada?
For.
Councillor Turco?
Against.
The motion fails.
Well, you never
I'm
missed me.
sorry. Mayor Provenzano?
Against. So 8.4.
Under agenda item 8.4, a motion by Councillors Shoemaker and Grandinetti, whereas the SR Centre box seats have been sold out since the SR Centre was built in 2006, and whereas when the SR Centre was built, additional box seats were framed in but were not completed, and whereas there is a waiting list for additional boxes if they are completed, and whereas there is an opportunity with greater seating capacity to attract more sports or entertainment events, and whereas funding may be available through provincial or federal programs to assist with the cost of completing the already framed in box seats. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be requested to bring forward a plan to develop the additional box seats at the SR Centre, as well as investigate what other potential sources of funding may be available.
Go ahead, Mr. Shoemaker, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple people give me a call about box seats at the SR and if they could, I don't know if they buy a box or if they lease a box for a period of time. I think they lease a box. And then through some questions, I understand that there's a fairly significant waiting list for boxes at the SR Centre. And I understand there may also be, this may also be the type of thing that would be eligible for certain funding envelopes from higher levels of government. So I think it is, if there's a waiting list and if there's funding envelopes available, it's something that we should probably look at and see if there's a chance to bring in some additional revenue there.
Before we get into questions, this is an active file, so I'm going to ask the Deputy CEO, Ver, just to give everybody an update on it, because it is something staff is working on.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Shoemaker and Council, we are looking at right now the conversion of some of the office space that's in one corner of the SR Centre to enable more boxes to be built. It was conversations with Mayor Provenzano earlier this year. As well, I maybe received a similar call from someone that was looking at the potential for funding to support this type of initiative. So We're looking at the potential to expand the office space with our current space that we have, retrofitting. We did reach out to people on the list of people that are waiting for boxes to reconfirm if there's interest in those boxes and if they're ready to proceed in trying to secure something. And that process is ongoing right now.
Okay. So we have Councillor Bruni and then Councillor Grandinetti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess in the resolution it said completing the already framed-in box seats. So are those the seats that are on the west-south corner, I guess where management sits, or are we looking at the east side, which I don't see anything framed-in box seats there? Where would the framed-in box seats be? Anybody? Well, you guys wrote the resolution.
Well, so I think they're asking in your resolution,
I'd like to
the
know
pre-existing space Tom is talking about is the office space City currently occupies, but is that the space that you're referring to in your resolution, Councillor Shoemaker?
It said framed-in box
Yeah.
seats, so I was kind of curious what...
My understanding, perhaps the Commissioner can answer this, but there are, behind the, what would be, I guess, the eastern wall of the SR Center, there was space prepared there for future box seats, am I correct?
But they're not, yeah, but it's not framed-in box seats, it's, am I correct?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. I believe what the resolution is referring to as the framed-in box seats is when the facility was constructed, the structure was in place to potentially expand that down the road to house the box seats.
That's what you were referring to, Councillor Shoemaker. Yeah.
Well, it's not framed in.
Well, it's, you know the intention, whatever the language you chose, you understand what they're referring to in the motion.
Structure in the back.
I don't think it makes a material difference to the...
I guess a question to Mr. Ver. Regarding this, was there an estimated cost several years back on if we had boxes around the building? Mr. Ver?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bruni. Yes, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it predates me, the city was 2000, about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a look at revisiting the build-out of these box suites. At that time, it was explored, it was determined not to proceed with that based on discussions with the Greyhounds and the cost of the project at the time.
What was the cost? Do you recall what the estimate was?
Councillor Butland, do you have the number?
Yes, I called the architect who designed the SR Center, and the box, the space is there for another 10 or 12 boxes, and the estimate, whatever was the last run at it, was between $5 and $6 million.
Okay. Councillor Grandinetti, were you going to add that?
I was going to add to that too, and then I believe back when I was on council, I believe one of the main reasons we didn't go ahead with this was we couldn't get the Greyhounds on board as a partner with us in whatever way it was back then. And if I may comment now, or Councillor Bruni, would you like to finish? It's just this goes to where you alluded, Mr. Mayor, about doing this the splash pad. Do it right the first time. The structural components for these box seats should have been done when the building was constructed originally, and then you go ahead with the cosmetics later on, which I guess back then, if I remember right, they wanted to come in at $25 million under budget. But then it ends up costing you more money to do it afterwards, because now you have to start ripping the roof off. If I remember right, the main cost for this, you had to take all the seating out, build all the concrete stairs and the structure for this, and I believe the scoreboard had to come down and rip half the roof off to get the concrete in there. I've always been in disagreement with this. Cheap out on everything and then spend more than what was budgeted for. But as for this resolution, I'd like to see it go forward.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on this resolution? Councillor Christian.
Yeah, so if I'm clear on this, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ver, there's something we're looking at developing the office offices in the southwest corner of the building and converting those to boxes. And how many, if we went ahead with that, how many extra boxes would we get for that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, initial estimates is we could fit 6 boxes into that space.
How many people do we have on a waiting list right now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Christian, right now there are between 10 to 16 people on the waiting list. Again, we're just going through though and confirming with those people if they would be prepared to proceed.
So just a quick comment. I don't have a problem with investigating the box seat issue. When I read this, I get the sense it's like full steam ahead, we need to move with this. It seems to me that if it was phrased in such a way that we could get sort of a business case and an update, I agree with the philosophy behind it. I think we should look at it. When I read this, I get the sense that we need a plan to move forward with this, and I'm not really at the stage where I want to move forward with it. I need more information.
Yeah, I think the motion could be read that to direct staff to bring something forward, a plan forward to us. About probably a year ago, as a result of a conversation that I was having with Mr. Bear and Mr. Santa Maria, we use a good chunk of that space for office space. Right. So the suggestion was we should investigate moving those city employees to less prime space and looking at the cost of turning that space into box space. Staff was looking at that and was going to bring that proposal back to you in any event. So at some point when staff had a handle on what those costs were, they were going to bring it back and look at converting that space into boxes. And I think that would necessitate then an assessment of the demand, but also an assessment of the demand beyond that. It might be that that is a much more affordable project and that satisfies the entire demand of the list.
Right.
I think this motion gives them the breadth to look at the larger demand. I don't think it requires them to. Am I reading that incorrectly, Councillors Grandinetti Shoemaker? You're right. So, like, if they brought back a plan for us and it just said, this is what we should do, period, I don't think that's contrary to the motion. Or this is what we should do, and we could go farther and do this if council directs us to.
Right.
But you wouldn't be authorizing this type of, like, any kind of significant spending on this. That would all have to come back to you.
Yeah, and the only other point I'm going to make, and I'm going to make this quick. I remember when council was debating this, the SR Center back in the day, and how we were going to get circuses coming through the south entrance because the doorway was larger, and it's all anecdotal and it's speculative. And so I caution the movers and seconders about getting extra events in here simply because we have boxes. I mean, I know you're using that to pitch the idea, and we want to think positively. But there are other factors economically that impact whether we get other events here. It's not simply box seating, it's actually selling floor seats, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with investigating this as a possibility. I certainly don't want to commit council to anything substantive at this point, but I would accept the information for consideration for sure.
And that's what the mover and seconder are looking for. You're looking for the information. You're not looking to bind council to build this project. So Councillor Nero, then Butland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the resolution, mainly because I think staff is close enough to this issue that, the report is readily available, and it's an update of what, they've already been looking at. But secondly, when this comes back, I think that council would want to know the priority of our, where should $5 or $6 million go? I mean, we're looking at the McMeekin Center and waiting for a report on that. And if we're looking at that and we're looking at box seats, I think financially we need to be able to put that into perspective on where our long-term debt is going to end up in the next 2 or 3 years. So just alone, it would make more sense to me if the report comes back and it comes back with some priorities, with some kind of financial additional report to show what it's going to do to our long-term debt.
I think that would be part of the 2019 capital plan, and we would be making those kind of assessments together.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Butland.
Yes, Councillor Nero, you hit it on the head. I have no problem with investigating, but if it is $5 to $6 million, and it is not going to attract any more sports or entertainment events. Let's be a reality. We have the best junior hockey team in Canada, and we sell 3,600 seats just the other night. So it's not a sellout at this point.
So we have the best junior hockey team in Canada.
Pardon me?
But we have the best junior hockey team in Canada.
Hockey team, and I'm sure they'll fill the arena. No, I lost it.
Sorry, Councillor Brown. I just wanted to repeat it because it's an awesome statement. It's an awesome statement.
I agree. And so the extra 7,500 people in box seats, is that going to make any big difference? Not at all. But Councillor Nero has hit it on the head. McMeekin is in dire straits. Who's going to benefit most from an expenditure? It's going to take a lot more than that. Of 75 or 80 people sitting in a box seat. No offense to those people. Maybe we'll go there. But the McMeekin expansion or renewal or whatever is most important and will benefit a whole lot of young people. And I suspect both those reports would come almost simultaneously. So, thank you.
Okay, can we have a vote on the motion? All in favor? Motion is carried. So, Madam Clerk?
Agenda item 8.5, skating trails, a motion by Councillors Grandinetti and Shoemaker. Whereas many municipalities across Canada have developed skating trails as a new way to keep residents active in the winter months, and whereas a healthy population is a happy and productive population with lower rates of medical issues and common health problems, and whereas Toronto, Winnipeg, Hamilton, Edmonton, Huntsville, and Whitehorse have developed skating trails either on rivers or on land ranging from 1 to 11 kilometers in length. Now therefore be it resolved that city staff be requested in consultation with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee to explore opportunities for development of a skating trail within the city.
Councillor Grandinetti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is something that I seen last year that a lot of municipalities have been doing around Canada. Toronto is now building one under the Gardiner Expressway. So I think if they could do one under the Gardiner Expressway, we could build one at one of our parks downtown, or partner with the private sector, a golf course or something, and build an ice trail through the forest. Thank you.
It's a really nice idea. I like it.
Yeah, and if you guys, folks, if you go online and Google ice trail, you'll see quite a bit of them in throughout Canada, and there's one, I believe.
There's some really cool ones.
If you be patient with me for a second here. There's one in a provincial park that has an ice pad. It's all combined with an ice pad, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and everything else. So,
yeah, very nice.
Thank you.
Councillor Christian.
I think it's a good idea. I think when I scratched out a drawing of where I thought the splash pad could be, I had the skating path built into it. So it is a good idea, and really the equipment to and actually. Shelley Shell and I had this discussion. She actually brought it forward to me at one point, and I loved the idea, so I support it. And I think that's something that you can have in multiple parks at the same time in the winter.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea.
So everybody likes it. It's a great idea. Councillor Grandinetti, anything else before we vote on it?
No, it's just that Commissioner Girardi and I spoke about this a few weeks ago, and he was telling me about the infrastructure that he was looking at this. But most parks don't have infrastructure in place. They go with the existing trails. I'll just use Bellevue Park as an example.
Excellent.
And then, and then what they do is they come this time of year, they'll sweep out an area, and then they'll have a water truck go on the trails, and that's how they flood it.
Yeah. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Just a comment. I do remember you, Councillor Christian, mentioning this, so I'm glad to see it's coming back up. Would there be a friendly amendment to maybe look at what you just said? You said cross-country skiing as well?
The McGregor Point Provincial Park has a 400-meter skating trail with a hockey pad, and it's a cross-country ski trail and snowshoe trail. They're all incorporated in this park. So I guess we could possibly do that.
Yeah, if you want a friendly amendment, because then you can see it as more of a come one, come all. There's activity for everyone. So.
Councillor Shoemaker?
Perhaps we could just explore opportunities for development of a skating trail or other recreational activities within the city. That might be the easiest way.
That sounds great. So that's how we'll amend that. All in favor? Carried. Let the clerk catch up with this here because she had to put that amendment in.
Okay, under agenda item 8.6, Sault Smart Grid Project, a motion by Councillors Butland and Hollingsworth, whereas at the November 2017 council meeting, council received a report on utility distribution microgrids, and whereas said report outlined the potential socioeconomic and development benefits to the community of a local microgrid project, and whereas Natural Resources Canada has funding available for microgrid projects under the Green Energy Funding umbrella, and the PUC is preparing an application for funding of $9.2 million from this funding umbrella. Now therefore be it resolved that City Council support the application of PUC Inc. for funding from the NRCan Green Energy Fund for the Sault Smart Grid project, and further that Council authorizes Mayor Provenzano to provide a letter of support endorsing this funding application.
So Council, before Councillor Butland speaks to this, I just want to be clear. So the project is still being worked on and underway, and a funding application is being made. They're not going to come back to the shareholder, which is you folks, for final approval until we know what the numbers are specifically. Those numbers will obviously be impacted by any funding we do or do not receive. So it's obviously supportive to the funding application if City Council is supportive of the funding application, and the purpose of this resolution is just to show that City Council is supportive of the funding application and allows me to write a letter that would indicate that's the case. Councillor Butland?
Yes. Thanks for shepherding this through to the point that we're finally at. I appreciate your efforts in that area, and I'm an unabashed supporter of this project, and I think that's well known. The most exciting part for me, should it get approval at the utility and then come to council for final approval, I hope it does go there. But this is a step in the right direction. Without the $9 million towards the project, it may not become a project. And finally, there is a building attached to this project, and our alternative energy motto, logo, call it what you will, finally may say, okay, there is a symbolic issue or building attached to this. It's a center for energy excellence in northern environments, a hub for energy research, education, innovation, and investments. So there is a proposed building, and a proposed building in the downtown area of where I do not know where it will be. But it will be symbolic, and there are some tenants already in place to get together with this building. So what Algoma Steel just said now, or last week, and I'm sorry I wasn't there to hear it personally, they're going to build a rather expansive solar farm. Once again, just adds this to who we are. We are indeed the alternative energy capital of North America, and also federal government will have a hard time saying we're not a smart city. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak to this? All in favor? Motion's carried. Council, we have multiple motions under 8.7, and with council's consent, what we were going to do is defer that issue to the first meeting in January. So if everybody's agreeable, we're not going to read all the multiple motions. We're going to just take this and we will put those resolutions on the agenda for the first meeting in January unless the respective movers of those resolutions propose a different one by then. Is everybody agreeable to that? Yeah. So we're doing that on consent. Madam Clerk, if you can continue on, please.
Under agenda item 11, a motion by Councillors Kropotich and Butland resolved that all bylaws under item 11 of the agenda under date December 11, 2017 be approved.
All in favor? Oh, sorry. Councillor Nero, apologize.
Nero.
We need Councillor Nero's mic, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to our city solicitor, Ms. Nula. In regards to bylaw 2017-227 and 2017-232. Both bylaws have to do, one with food vendors and one with licensing peddlers. And if council recalls, we're still waiting for an outstanding resolution on the peddlers bylaw. And I just wanted our city solicitor to confirm that when that bylaw comes back, we're still able to deal with the license fees, and that this is not going to hold us to food vendors or the peddlers bylaw. I mean, where do we stand with that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Nero. I was speaking to my staff person that's working on that at the moment, and he is actively working at revamping the entire fee schedule for the peddlers bylaw, so it's going to look very different, and it will not be impeded by what's passed tonight.
Okay, so when that bylaw comes back and we pass that bylaw, that new fee schedule will take over from there? Or when the license renewals come up?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Nero, yes, I'm not exactly sure which one it will be, but it will have to be in concert. They'll have to work together, the user fee and the new peddlers bylaw that he's working on.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Council, before we move on to the next list of bylaws and the adjournment and closed session, and while we still have hopefully most of the community's attention, since this is our last meeting before the Christmas holidays, I just wanted to, on behalf of obviously myself and all of you, wish the entire community a very Merry Christmas and a very safe and happy New Year. And I hope that everybody has an opportunity to enjoy the holidays with their family and their friends. Madam Clerk.
Agenda item 13, a motion by Councillors Grandinetti and Christian, resolved that this council proceed into closed session to discuss labor negotiations. Further be it resolved that should the said closed session be adjourned, the council may reconvene in closed session to continue to discuss the same matter without the need for a further authorizing resolution.
All in favor? Carried.
And a motion by Councillors Krampadich and Christian that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? Carried.